The space station Concordia floated like a giant metal flower among the stars. Inside its main meeting room, two very different groups sat across from each other at a long silver table. On one side were the humans, wearing simple dark blue uniforms. On the other side were the tall beings that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their skin shined with different colors that changed as they moved. Ambassador Wei sat quietly at the head of the human delegation. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had spent 20 years working to make peace between different alien races and humans. Today was supposed to be the final day of peace talks with the Empire. The leader, High Chancellor, stood up. Her crystal body caught the light from the room's windows and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "The treaty papers are signed," she said, "but there is one more tradition we must follow before this peace can be complete." Nodded, he had read about customs. They had many strange rules that seemed odd to humans, but respecting these rules was important for keeping peace. "The burden exchange," continued. "Each side must take responsibility for the other's greatest problem. It shows trust and commitment to helping each other." She clapped her hands twice. The large doors at the back of the room opened, and two guards walked in. Between them walked a female who looked very different from the others. While the other had perfect symmetry and smooth crystal skin, this one was clearly different. The left side of her face was larger than the right side. Her crystal skin had cracks and scars running through it like lightning. Some parts of her body were cloudy instead of clear crystal. Her shoulders were uneven, and she walked with a slight limp. The other in the room looked away from her, as if seeing her caused them pain. Some even made quiet sounds of disgust. "This is," said, and her voice became cold. "She is our greatest burden. She is ugly by all standards of beauty. She is consumed by jealousy of others. She has caused problems in 3 different colonies with her angry outbursts and bitter attitude." Kept her eyes on the floor. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. Could see her shoulders shaking slightly, but he could not tell if it was from anger or sadness. "She cannot work with others," continued. "She argues with superiors. She questions our ways. She spreads unhappiness wherever she goes. No family will take her. No colony will accept her. She is truly unwanted." The human delegation looked uncomfortable. This seemed more like punishment than tradition. Assistant, a young woman named Lisa Park, leaned over and whispered to him. "Sir, this seems wrong. Are they really giving us a person like she's property?" Raised his hand slightly to quiet her. He was studying carefully. The alien woman still had not looked up from the floor. "And what do you offer us in return?" asked. His crystal face showed confusion. "Offer? This is the burden exchange. We give you our burden and you give us yours." "I understand," said calmly. "You're giving us someone you see as a problem. What problem of ours would you like to take?" The leader thought for a moment. "You're criminals, you're violent ones. We will take them and put them to work in our crystal mines. Hard labor will fix their bad behavior." Several humans at the table shifted uncomfortably. Kept his expression neutral, but inside he was troubled. They clearly did not understand humans very well if they thought this was a fair trade. "We appreciate your offer," said slowly, "but we have our own ways of dealing with crime and rehabilitation. We believe people can change and grow better with the right help." "Then what burden can we take from you?" asked, sounding annoyed. Looked around the table at his team. They all knew him well enough to stay quiet and let him think. After a long moment, he smiled. "We don't see this as taking a burden," said. "If would like to come with us, she will be welcome on Earth. We don't consider any person to be a burden." The room became very quiet. All the stared at as if he had said something crazy. "You do not understand," said. "Look at her. She is malformed, damaged. Her mind is twisted with jealousy and anger. She brings only problems." Stood up and walked around the table toward. The guards moved to stop him, but waved them back. Said gently, "Would you look at me, please?" Slowly the alien woman raised her head. Her eyes were a deep blue color like sapphires. They were filled with pain and sadness, but also with intelligence. When she looked at, he saw something they had missed. Behind all that hurt was a sharp, thinking mind. "Would you like to come to Earth with us?" he asked. "You would be free to leave any time if you're not happy there." His eyes widened. She looked around the room at the other, then back at. When she spoke, her voice was rough from not being used much. "You would take me, even though I am ugly, even though I cause problems." "We don't think you're ugly," said honestly. "And as for problems, well, every person has challenges. The question is whether they get the right kind of help." He turned back to, "We accept this exchange. Will come with us if she chooses to." The leader looked shocked. "But you have not even examined her properly. You do not know the extent of her defects and behavioral issues." "We don't need to examine her," said firmly. "She's a person, not a machine. We'll take good care of her." For the first time since entering the room, straightened her shoulders. Something like hope flickered in her blue eyes. The peace treaty was completed, but knew the real work was just beginning. The transport ship landed softly on the grass field outside the Earth Colonial Research Center in New Geneva, pressed her face against the small window and watched green trees sway in the wind. She had never seen so much plant life in one place. Worlds were mostly crystal cities and metal structures. Wei walked beside her as they left the ship. "Dr. Martinez will take good care of you," he said. "She's one of our best scientists who studies different alien species, but more importantly, she's a kind person." Nodded but said nothing. She was still finding it hard to believe that anyone would want to help her. During the 3-day journey from Concordia, the human crew members had been polite and friendly. They brought her food, showed her how the ship's systems worked, and never once looked at her with disgust. It was so different from what she was used to. The research center was a cluster of white buildings surrounded by gardens full of colorful flowers. Humans walked along stone paths, talking and laughing together. Some were carrying strange instruments or data tablets. Others sat on benches reading or eating lunch. "It's so peaceful," said quietly. "We try to make our work environments comfortable," replied. "Stressed people don't do their best thinking." They entered the main building and took an elevator to the 3rd floor. The hallways were painted in soft blue and yellow colors, with pictures of different planets and alien species on the walls. Noticed that none of the pictures showed only beautiful aliens. There were creatures of all shapes and sizes, all treated with equal dignity. Dr. Sarah Martinez was waiting in her office. She was a woman in her 40s with curly brown hair and warm brown eyes behind thick glasses. When she saw, she smiled genuinely. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah said. "Please sit wherever you're comfortable." Chose a chair near the window where she could see the gardens. Sarah sat across from her, not behind her desk like a superior, but in another chair like they were equals. "Told me a bit about your situation," Sarah said gently. "But I'd like to hear your side of things. What was life like for you on Worlds?" Was quiet for a long time. She was not used to anyone asking for her opinions or experiences. "I was born wrong," she finally said. "My crystal structure is asymmetrical. My parents tried to fix it with surgery, but it only made things worse. The other children would not play with me. They said I was broken." Sarah nodded, taking notes on a tablet. "Tell me about school. What subjects did you study?" "Mathematics, crystal engineering, colony management, but I was not good at them." His voice became bitter. "My teachers said I thought about problems in the wrong way. I could not follow their logical methods." "What do you mean by wrong way?" Sarah asked with interest. Struggled to explain. "When they showed us an engineering problem, I would see patterns that others could not see. I would find solutions that worked, but I could not explain how I knew they would work. My teachers said this was just guessing, not real thinking." Sarah set down her tablet and leaned forward. Can you show me an example? I have some puzzles here that might be similar to what you're talking about. She pulled out a three-dimensional puzzle made of interlocking metal pieces. It was a navigation problem that ship engineers used for training. This usually takes our students about 2 hours to solve, Sarah said. Looked at the puzzle for about 30 seconds. Then she began moving pieces quickly with her long crystal fingers. In less than 5 minutes, she had solved it completely. Sarah stared in amazement. How did you do that so fast? I could see the pattern, said, looking embarrassed. The way the pieces wanted to fit together, it was obvious. Sarah said excitedly, you might have a condition that humans call enhanced pattern recognition. Your brain processes spatial relationships differently than most people. It's not wrong thinking, it's a special gift. Looked confused. Gift, but I cannot explain my thinking, I just see the answers. That's exactly the point, Sarah said. Some of the most brilliant human mathematicians and engineers work the same way. They see solutions intuitively, then figure out the explanations later. We call it spatial visual intelligence. For the next hour, Sarah showed more puzzles and problems. Each one that would take normal people hours to solve, completed in minutes. Sarah also asked her about the jealousy issues her people had mentioned. I was not really jealous of their beauty, admitted. I was frustrated because they got opportunities I never had. They were chosen for important projects and advanced education. I was given simple tasks that bored me. When I tried to suggest better ways to do things, they said I was being difficult. You weren't jealous, Sarah said with understanding. You were intellectually frustrated. Your mind was capable of complex work, but you were never given the chance to use it. Sarah stood up and walked to her bookshelf. She pulled out several books about human neurodiversity and learning differences. On Earth, we've learned that there are many different types of intelligence, she explained. Some people are good with words, others with numbers, others with building things or understanding emotions. We try to find the right environment for each person's strengths. She handed a book with pictures showing different ways human brains could work. Would you like to learn about this, and maybe help us with some research projects that might use your particular talents? Took the book with trembling hands. No one had ever called her talents particular instead of wrong before. You really think I could be useful here? She asked. I think you might be exactly what some of our engineering teams have been looking for, Sarah said. We have navigation problems that our best computers can't solve. Maybe your pattern-seeing abilities could help. That evening, sat in the small apartment the research center had given her. It was simple but comfortable, with a bed, desk, kitchen, and large windows overlooking the gardens. She was reading the book Sarah had given her, and for the first time in her life, she was beginning to understand that her mind was not broken. It was just different. And on Earth, different was not a bad thing. It was an opportunity. 3 weeks after arriving on Earth, was working in the navigation research lab on the 5th floor of the research center. Dr. Martinez had introduced her to the team that was trying to solve problems with faster-than-light travel routes. The current systems worked, but they were slow and used too much energy. The problem is here, said Dr. James, pointing at a complex star map on the large wall screen. When ships jump between star systems, they have to follow specific paths to avoid gravity wells and cosmic storms. But calculating these paths takes enormous amounts of computer power. Studied the three-dimensional map floating in front of them. It showed hundreds of star systems connected by thin blue lines representing safe travel routes. To human eyes, it looked incredibly complicated. But something else stood out. You are only looking at straight lines, she said quietly. Doctor turned to her. What do you mean? The paths you have calculated, continued, becoming more confident. They go directly from one point to another, but space is not flat, it curves and flows. There are patterns underneath the patterns. She walked up to the display and began moving the star map with hand gestures. The view rotated and zoomed, showing different angles. If you follow the natural curves of space-time instead of fighting against them, the paths become shorter and use less energy, she explained. The human scientists watched in fascination as manipulated the display. Her asymmetrical hands moved in complex patterns, tracing new routes that spiraled and curved through space in ways that seemed almost artistic. "I don't understand," said Dr. Lisa, another team member. "How can a curved path be shorter than a straight line?" "Space is not straight," said. "It bends around massive objects. You are traveling on the surface of a curved ocean, but you keep trying to dig tunnels through the water instead of riding the waves." Over the next hour, showed them route after route that could cut travel time by huge amounts. What she was describing would revolutionize space travel for all of human civilization. "This is incredible," Doctor said. "But can you prove these calculations mathematically?" Confidence faded. "I can see that they work, but I cannot write the equations the way you do. I have never been good at formal mathematics." "That's where I come in," said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see walking into the lab. He was a tall, thin man in his 30s with messy black hair and nervous eyes. He carried a tablet and wore a wrinkled shirt that suggested he had been working late. "Is our best mathematical engineer," Doctor explained too. "If anyone can turn your insights into formal equations, it's him." Nodded shyly at, "I heard about what you're working on. Could you show me these patterns you're seeing?" For the next several hours and worked together. She would point out patterns and relationships in the star maps, and he would translate her insights into mathematical formulas. It was slow work because they had to bridge the gap between her intuitive understanding and his analytical approach. "Here," said, highlighting a section of space near the system. "This region has overlapping gravity fields that create a river of curved space. Ships could ride this current and reach the Vega system 60% faster than current routes." Worked frantically on his tablet, creating equations that described what was seeing. "If you're right," he said excitedly, "this could save months of travel time for colonist ships." By late evening, most of the other scientists had gone home, but N continued working, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered notes. They discovered they both preferred working at night when the building was quiet. "Can I ask you something?" said during a break. He seemed nervous. "When you look at these star maps, what exactly do you see?" Thought for a moment. "It is hard to explain. You know how water flows around rocks in a stream? Space flows around stars and planets in the same way. The gravity fields create currents and eddies. Most people try to calculate paths using only straight lines and angles, but I see the flowing patterns underneath." "That's amazing," said genuinely. "I've always been good at mathematics, but I could never see spatial relationships the way you do. I have to work everything out step by step with formulas." "You do not think my way of thinking is strange?" asked. Laughed, but not in a mean way. "Strange. I have trouble figuring out which direction is north when I'm walking outside. I get lost in my own neighborhood. What you can do with spatial patterns is like magic to me." This was the beginning of an unusual friendship. Had always felt awkward around other people because of his shy personality and obsessive focus on mathematics. Had always felt rejected because of her appearance and unconventional thinking. But working together, they discovered that their different strengths complemented each other perfectly. Over the following weeks, they developed a routine. During the day, would work with the research team, identifying new navigation patterns and solving spatial problems that had puzzled human scientists for years. In the evenings, she would work alone, translating her insights into mathematical proofs. "You know," said one night as they tested another new route, "the other were complete idiots." Looked up from her calculations, surprised, rarely said anything negative about anyone. What do you mean? They had someone with your abilities, and they treated you like garbage, he said, anger creeping into his usually gentle voice. Do you know how many problems you've solved in the past month? Navigation issues that our best computers couldn't handle, engineering challenges that had teams stuck for years. I am just seeing patterns that were already there, said modestly. Just seeing patterns, shook his head. You're revolutionizing space travel. The routes you've discovered will make interstellar commerce possible on a scale we never imagined. Families separated by light years will be able to visit each other regularly. Scientific expeditions will reach distant galaxies. He turned to look directly at her, his shy demeanor forgotten in his enthusiasm. You're not ugly or broken or any of the things they told you. You're brilliant. You're changing the universe. Felt something warm and unfamiliar spreading through her chest. For the first time in her life, someone was proud of her mind rather than ashamed of her appearance. Thank you, she said quietly, for helping me prove the mathematics, for working with me. Thank you, replied, for showing me that there are ways of understanding the universe that can't be found in textbooks. Outside the laboratory windows, Earth turned slowly beneath a field of distant stars, stars that would soon be much closer thanks to the patterns that only could see. The emergency meeting was called at dawn. Sat in the conference room of the research center, surrounded by Dr. Martinez and several other colleagues who had become her friends over the past 2 months. Outside the large windows, she could see 3 gleaming ships hovering above the facility. They arrived 2 hours ago, Director Harrison explained. He was the head of the research center, a stern man who rarely showed emotion, but today his face looked worried. High Chancellor is demanding the return of their property immediately. Felt her stomach twist with fear. She had known this day might come, but she had hoped they would simply forget about her. They can't just take her, said angrily. She's not property, she's a person who chose to stay here. They're claiming that the human government stole valuable technology through deception, Director Harrison continued. They say we tricked them by not revealing that had useful abilities. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. That's ridiculous. They're the ones who called her a burden and wanted to get rid of her. I know, Director Harrison said, but they have lawyers now. They're threatening to break the peace treaty if we don't return her. Through the conference room windows, could see more ships arriving. These were not just diplomatic vessels. Some of them were clearly military escort ships. How many ships? She asked quietly. 12 so far, Director Harrison answered, including 3 that could level this entire facility if they wanted to. The room became silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were not making a polite request. They were making a threat. An hour later, they were all gathered in the main auditorium. High Chancellor stood at the center of the room, surrounded by an entourage of the most perfect-looking had ever seen. Their crystal bodies were flawless, their proportions mathematically precise, their movements graceful and coordinated. You have stolen from us, announced, her voice echoing through the large room. You took our damaged citizen and somehow extracted value from her defective mind. This was not part of our agreement. We didn't steal anything, Director Harrison replied calmly. Developed her abilities through her own work and with our support. These abilities were always part of her. Impossible, said another, a male whose crystal skin sparkled like diamonds. We tested her thoroughly. She was incapable of productive work. Dr. Martinez stood up. Maybe you never gave her the right kind of work. Maybe your tests were designed for the wrong type of thinking. Our methods are perfect, the diamond skin snapped. We have created the most advanced civilization in this galaxy through precise logical processes. There is no wrong type of thinking. There is only correct thinking and defective thinking. Gestured, and several more entered the auditorium. These were clearly their top scientists and engineers. They carried advanced equipment and data displays showing complex calculations. "These are our finest minds," announced. Doctor, our top navigation specialist, Engineer Hun, who designed our fastest ships, Mathematician Era, who solved the unified field equations. Each of the that was introduced was more physically perfect than the last. Their achievements were recited in detail: advanced degrees, important discoveries, leadership positions. They stood in a line facing the humans like a display of superiority. "This is what real value looks like," continued. "Perfect forms, perfect minds, perfect achievements. Compare this to your damaged refugee." Shrank down in her seat. Surrounded by these perfect beings, she suddenly felt all her old insecurities rushing back. How could she have thought she was valuable? These were everything she was not: beautiful, accomplished, respected by their society. "Perhaps the humans' claims are exaggerated," Doctor said, her voice like crystal bells. "Show us these supposed breakthroughs this defective one has achieved." Dr. Martinez looked at encouragingly. "Would you like to demonstrate some of your work?" But shook her head. Standing in front of all these perfect, she felt like a broken toy trying to pretend it was valuable. "Maybe they are right," she whispered. "Maybe you were just being kind to me." Jumped up from his seat. "That's not true, and you know it." He turned to address the delegation. "Has revolutionized space navigation. She solved problems that our best computers couldn't handle." "Computer problems are trivial," Engineer Hun said dismissively. "Any properly functioning mind can solve mechanical puzzles." "Then solve this one," said angrily. He activated the main display screen and brought up one of the navigation problems that had been stumping human scientists for years. "This is the 442 route optimization problem. Our ships currently take 18 months to reach that system. Show us how your perfect minds would improve that." The scientists looked at the display. Doctor stepped forward and began making calculations on a portable device. The others huddled around her, discussing the problem in their melodic language. After 30 minutes, they had produced a solution that improved travel time by 12%. "Adequate," said smugly. "A modest improvement achieved through proper logical methodology." "Solved this in 15 minutes, said, "and her solution cuts travel time by 60%. They looked shocked. "Impossible," Doctor said. "Show us." Everyone looked at. She was still slumped in her chair, looking miserable. "I cannot," she said. "Not in front of them, they will just say it is wrong." Dr. Martinez said gently, "Remember what you told me about the patterns, about seeing the currents in space." "That was just imagination," mumbled. "These are real scientists, they know proper methods." Looked triumphant. "You see, the defective mind cannot perform under proper scrutiny. Your so-called breakthroughs were just human kindness, not real achievement." But walked over to his chair and knelt down beside it. "Do you remember what you showed me about the current? How space flows like water around massive objects?" Looked up at him. In his eyes she saw not pity or false kindness, but genuine respect and friendship. "You said I was brilliant," she whispered. "You are brilliant," he said firmly. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." Dr. Martinez joined them. "These people spent your whole life telling you that you were worthless, but they were wrong then and they're wrong now." Other human colleagues began gathering around her chair. People who had worked with her, learned from her, been amazed by her insights. "The navigation improvements you've made will help colony ships reach distant worlds safely," said Doctor. "Families will be reunited faster because of your work," added Doctor. "Exploration missions that would have taken decades can now be completed in years," said another researcher. Slowly stood up. She looked around at all the humans who believed in her, then at the perfect who had always rejected her. "I need to make a choice," she said quietly. "Stay with people who value my mind or return to people who see only my flaws." The room waited in tense silence to hear her decision. Walked slowly to the front of the auditorium. Every step felt important, like she was walking away from her old life and toward something new. When she reached the display screen, she turned to face both the humans and the "I will solve this navigation problem," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Then I will make my choice about where I belong." She activated the display and brought up the star map of the 442 system. The three-dimensional projection filled the space above the auditorium, showing hundreds of stars, planets, and cosmic phenomena in glowing detail. "Your solution reduces travel time by 12%, she said to Doctor. "That is good logical work, but you are thinking in straight lines through curved space." Began manipulating the display with her hands. The view shifted and rotated as she traced new pathways through the star field. "Space is not empty," she continued. "It has rivers and currents created by gravity from massive objects. If you follow these natural flows instead of fighting against them, the journey becomes much shorter." Her asymmetrical hands moved in complex patterns, highlighting areas where gravitational fields created what she called space currents. To the watching scientists, it looked like she was painting invisible pathways through the void. "Here," she said, marking a spiraling route that seemed to curve around several star systems. "Ships can ride the gravitational current from the Alpha binary system, using its orbital motion to accelerate toward the region." Was frantically taking notes, translating her spatial insights into mathematical formulas. "If this works," he called out, "it's not just 60% faster, it's 70% faster than current routes." Doctor looked stunned. "How do you see these patterns? Our most advanced computers model gravitational fields, but they cannot predict this type of curved optimization." "I see the shape of space itself," explained. "The way it bends and flows. Your computers calculate forces and vectors, but they miss the underlying currents." She continued working, showing route after route through different star systems. Each solution was more elegant than anything the scientists had ever seen. What took their computers hours to calculate, she could visualize in minutes. Engineer Hun stepped forward. "This is extraordinary. If these calculations are correct, we could reduce travel times across our entire empire." "But how?" demanded Doctor. "How can a defective mind accomplish what our best scientists cannot?" Dr. Martinez stood up. "Her mind isn't defective, it's different. On Earth, we've learned that there are many types of intelligence. Has what we call enhanced spatial visual processing. Her brain sees patterns that others miss." "That is impossible," said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "Our evaluation methods are perfect. If she had valuable abilities, we would have detected them." "Your evaluation methods test for one type of thinking," said, "the type that your society values, but intelligence comes in many forms." He brought up another display showing brain scans and cognitive research. "Thinks in spatial patterns and visual relationships. Your tests probably focused on linear logic and verbal reasoning. It's like testing a fish's intelligence by asking it to climb a tree." The delegation looked uncomfortable. For the first time, their perfect confidence seemed shaken. Finished her demonstration and turned to face directly. "You called me your greatest burden," she said. "You said I was ugly, jealous, and worthless, but the humans saw something different in me." She gestured toward the humans in the audience. "They did not try to fix my appearance or change my way of thinking. They helped me understand that my mind was valuable exactly as it was." "The humans deceived us," insisted, though she sounded less certain now. "They should have told us about your hidden abilities." "We didn't know about her abilities when we accepted the exchange," Director Harrison said calmly. "We simply believed that every person has potential value." Took a deep breath. "High Chancellor, I have made my decision. I choose to remain on Earth." The auditorium erupted in murmurs of surprise and approval. Crystal features showed shock and anger. "You belong to society," she said. "You cannot simply abandon your people." My people abandoned me first, replied. For 30 years you told me I was broken. The humans have shown me in 2 months that I was never broken, I was just in the wrong environment. She walked over to stand beside Dr. Martinez. These are my people now, the ones who value my mind, not despite my differences but because of them. 3 weeks after the confrontation, news reached Earth that shocked everyone. 7 citizens had requested asylum with human colonies, claiming they too had been rejected by their society for being different. They brought with them their own unique abilities, emotional intelligence that their logical society had dismissed, creative thinking that their rigid system had suppressed, empathetic understanding that their hierarchical culture had punished. 6 months later, stood at the front of a lecture hall at the University of New Geneva. She wore a simple blue dress that complemented her crystal skin, and her confidence had grown tremendously. The audience was a mix of human and alien students, all eager to learn from Earth's chief navigation theorist. The key to understanding space travel, she explained, manipulating a holographic star map, is to stop thinking of space as empty void and start thinking of it as a flowing ocean with currents and tides. In the back of the lecture hall, watched proudly. Their professional partnership had deepened into something more personal over the months. He had learned to appreciate not just her brilliant mind, but her dry humor, her curiosity about human customs, and her gentle way of encouraging his own shy personality to become more confident. After the lecture, they walked together through the university gardens. It was spring on Earth, and the flowering trees created a canopy of pink and white blossoms over the paths. The embassy contacted Director Harrison again today, mentioned casually. They want to establish an exchange program, send some of their problem citizens to work with human researchers. Smiled. Perhaps they are beginning to understand that different minds see different solutions. Your revolution is spreading, observed. Other alien species are starting to question their own definitions of normal and abnormal. They sat on a bench beside a fountain where water danced in complex patterns, watched the flowing water with the same intensity she brought to studying space currents. Do you ever regret your decision? Asked quietly, leaving your birth species behind. Considered the question seriously. I cannot regret finding a place where my mind is valued, but I do hope that others who think differently will have better opportunities than I did. She turned to look at him. What about you? Do you regret working with someone so strange? Laughed. Meeting you changed my entire understanding of intelligence and friendship. You're the least strange person I know. You're just honest about seeing the world differently. Above them, ships moved across the evening sky using navigation routes that had designed. Families were being reunited, explorers were reaching distant worlds, and the boundaries of known space were expanding faster than ever before. The universe was a smaller place now, thanks to someone who had been taught her whole life that she was too different to matter. In the end, the humans had been right about one thing. Every mind has value when given the right environment to flourish. And sometimes, the minds that seem most broken are actually the ones that can see patterns no one else even knows exist. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky and continued their conversation about mathematics, space travel, and the beauty of thinking differently, around them, a world bloomed that celebrated diversity of thought as much as any other kind of diversity. It was exactly the kind of place where someone like belonged,